Sarah Swanson.
It's going to be white.
There you go.
It's light work, period.
Roll Tide and welcome to Tide TV This Week. I'm Roger Hoover, joined by Kira Goldstein. Kira, this is another busy time here at the Capstone.
Yeah, there is so much going on. Let's jump right into it. Let's start with basketball, shall we?
Absolutely, as Alabama played their third top 5 team in a row on Saturday as the Crimson Tide welcomed the 5th-ranked Kentucky Wildcats to Coleman Coliseum.
Alabama won the first of those 3 against 4th-ranked Baylor before dropping the second to number 1-ranked Auburn. On Saturday, inside Coleman Coliseum, the Crimson Tide started off hot, jumping out to a 9-1 lead, led by Charles Bediako, and capped off by this 3-pointer coming up from Keon Ellis. The Wildcats then responded with a 14-5 run to take a 1-point lead at 25-24 with less than 9 minutes remaining in the first. The scoring went back and forth until the Wildcats went on a 14-6 run to take a 6-point lead, 33-27 at the half.
Alabama started the second half with a huge dunk from Jawan Gary. This cut the Wildcats' lead to 4. Tide would get as close to 4 on several occasions, but the Wildcats responded each time. 5th-ranked Kentucky was just too much, as the Wildcats held off the Tide for the 66-55 win. Freshman Charles Bediako led the Crimson Tide in scoring with 12 points as he was a perfect 4 of 4 from the field and also made all 4 of his free throw attempts. Bediako is also 2 rebounds short of a double-double as he finished with 8 to go along with an assist, a block, and a steal. James Rojas also finished with 8 points with 5 rebounds and a block.
The Tide's Achilles heel against the Wildcats was really their 3-point shooting. Alabama connected on just 3 of 30 attempts from beyond the arc and were shooting just 28% from the field. On free throws, Alabama made just 66% of their attempts. The 1990-1991 SEC tournament champions were honored during halftime. Former players James Hollywood Robinson, Marcus Campbell, Gary Waits, Melvin Cheatham, Bryant Lancaster, and Philip Pearson, along with former head coach Wimp Sanderson, were among those in attendance.
You know, that team made it to the Sweet 16 twice, and in 2 years, they beat Auburn 6 times. They also defeated Florida, Auburn, and Tennessee to win the 1990-91 SEC Tournament Championship. Yeah, really good to see those guys back inside Coleman Coliseum. There's a lot of great history with Alabama basketball because the Crimson Tide are the second winningest program in SEC history, as Alabama and Kentucky, the only 2 schools in the SEC to have over 800 wins.
Yeah, Roger, there is a lot of great history for the Crimson Tide program, and more history will be made soon when Alabama breaks ground on a new arena and golf practice facility. Coach Oates is really excited for that new arena and how it will change and create a great atmosphere for our teams and fans on game day.
It's perfect, get students right on the floor. If you look at it, student section is going to stretch baseline, entire sideline to the baseline. I think that's what it's supposed to be. That's what college sports is about. It's getting students right down on the floor, and then, we'll still have plenty of premium seating for those that want it.
Along with the new arena, a brand new 9-hole golf course, driving range, short game practice area, and a golf house will become the home of University of Alabama's championship-winning men's and women's golf programs.
That's so cool. Let's take a look at the newest facility additions for the Crimson Tide.
On behalf of Alabama Athletics, thank you to everyone who has supported us through the Crimson Standard. We are extremely appreciative of the Board of Trustees, Chancellor St. John, and President Bell for consideration as we look to proceed with the next phase of our capital initiative, which would include a new competition arena for men's and women's basketball and gymnastics, as well as a new practice facility for men's and women's golf. To learn more about these projects, including ways to contribute, we invite you to visit crimsontidefoundation.org. Roll Tide.
Tide TV This Week is presented by the University of Alabama, where legends are made. Ford, for great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide.
William Hammer goes straight away to center. Oh, baby, did he do it? Yes, he did!
And now Drew Williams and look out downtown. Gone.
Throw there is not in time, and Alabama is a winner. Both teams had a chance to celebrate today, but it's Bama's that counts.
Really an indication of how far this Alabama team has come under Nate Oates.
Here comes Bama.
To Shaq again, makes it again.
Roll Tide rolls, exactly doing that.
JD going to the rack. Oh, mercy! Threw it home, and what opportunity!
Three now penetrates. Oh, what a shot with the left hand, with the dunk.
Welcome back to Tide TV this week. After facing 3 top 5 opponents in a row, the Alabama men's basketball team traveled to Oxford to take on the Ole Miss Rebels on Wednesday.
The Crimson Tide have had the toughest schedule in the nation so far this season, and it doesn't get any easier going on the road in the SEC. Alabama had won 4 straight against Ole Miss going into Wednesday night's contest, but had won just once in their last 8 against the Rebels in Oxford. Ole Miss jumped out to an early 18-9 lead to begin the game, but the Rebels held an 11-point lead at 30-19 with just over 9 minutes to go in the first half. But then the tide turned. Alabama went on a 17-4 run over the next 4 minutes to take a 36-34 lead. The Tide extended its lead, scoring the final 11 points of the half to cap a 30-8 run over the final 9+ minutes to give Alabama a 49-38 lead at the break. In that first half, Jaden Shackelford had 19 points on 5 three-pointers as Alabama was 8 of 12 from beyond the arc.
A 9-0 run in the opening 2 minutes of the second half by Ole Miss pulled the Rebels to within 2 at 49-47. However, the Tide responded with a 19-7 run over the next 6 minutes of play to stretch their lead back out to double digits at 68-54. Crimson Tide would lead by as many as 17 points in the second half as the Tide rolled over the Rebels at Oxford in a big way, 97-83. What a bounce-back game offensively for the Crimson Tide as Alabama shot 60% from the field and 63% on threes, led by Jaden Shackelford. Shaq was 8 of 13 from beyond the arc as he finished with a career-high 30 points to go along with 5 rebounds.
J.D. Davison had a big night offensively as well. J.D. was 7 of 8 from the field and a perfect 2 of 2 from beyond the arc as he finished with 18 points, 8 assists, and 3 rebounds. Keon Ellis and Noah Gurley also scored in double figures as Ellis finished with 13 and Gurley with 10. Wow, Roger, come on, what a game from the Crimson Tide on the road. Hopefully this was a real get-right game and they can carry that offensive performance into Saturday's matchup against the surging Arkansas Razorbacks.
Big win for the Crimson Tide as they work on still bolstering that NCAA tournament resume. Let's take an all-access look at Alabama's big win on the road in Oxford. It is brought to you by ATI.
Let's get back to us tonight, all right? Don't stop believing in each other.
Let's fly from deep bottom, and that is a good start.
So tonight, hold each other accountable, all right? Play hard, be like Alabama.
Guys, we gotta play hard.
Man, they gonna quit. I'm telling y'all, let's go.
I need energy out the gate. We're going on a run out the gate. Straight stops and straight buckets.
Enough time, come on.
Welcome everybody to the Pavilion at Ole Miss tonight. Crimson Tide of Alabama will try to get back in the win column. Hardy Quinterly right down the center of the lane and lays it in. Finds Keon driving to the rack. Reverse layup is good. AD throwing a lob and Jawan Gary throwing it home. Deep 3, bottom to shoot it. He's gonna make it. He's got 5 in Alabama. Look, the Tide steals it. Here's Shaq driving, leg it up. Count it, and he is fouled. He does anyway. He makes it again as Alabama is red, smoking hot. Quarter Shaq, 3 ball. Good night. Nice speed, Rojas in the lane, lays it up, count it, and he's fouled. A chance for the and one. 2-on-1 to the rim. It is good. He is fouled, and another. And one opportunity ahead to JD. The lob, Miniaco, and the flush. Gurley left of the circle. 3 bottom, and boys, he's been big tonight.
Know what it is, man.
Tide TV This Week is presented by the University of Alabama, where legends are made. Ford, for great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide.
Really an indication of how far this Alabama team has come under Nate Oates.
Here comes Bama.
To Shaq again. Makes it again.
Roll Tide rolls, exactly doing that.
JD going to the rack. Oh,
penetrates. Oh, what a shot with the left hand, with the dunk!
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. I'm Roger Hoover, joined by my co-host Kira Goldstein. The Reese's Senior Bowl took place this past Saturday in Mobile, and the Crimson Tide had a pair of participants.
Running back Brian Robinson Jr. and defensive lineman Fedarian Mathis showcased their skills for NFL coaches and scouts. And Brian Robinson Jr. was named the top running back on the American team as voted on by defensive players at the Senior Bowl. Robinson only carried the ball 6 times in the Senior Bowl for 18 yards, but during the week of practice, Robinson's skills stood out, especially on pass protection drills.
Tuscaloosa native that grew up, of course, cheering for the Crimson Tide. He became a star for Alabama. Now he's just a couple of months away from being drafted in the NFL.
That's a really, really great story. And some of Brian's former teammates from last year's national championship team were in action this past weekend at the Pro Bowl game. In his first year in the NFL, running back Najee Harris was named to the AFC Pro Bowl team. Against the NFL's best, the Pittsburgh Steelers rookie finished with 15 yards on 5 carries with 1 catch for 7 yards.
Dallas Cowboys defensive back Trayvon Diggs picked up an interception in the game to go along with his amazing catch during his Pro Bowl Skills Challenge. Diggs won best catch with his front flip catch, beating 3 All-Pro wide receivers. Diggs led the NFL in interceptions this season with 11.
He looks like he's having a great time. And in his first Pro Bowl, defensive lineman Jonathan Allen of the Washington Commanders, man, that feels weird to say, made his presence felt. Allen finished with 3 tackles, 1 solo, and a tackle for a loss.
And New England Patriots rookie quarterback Mac Jones threw his first touchdown pass. Jones also led the AFC in passing with 122 yards as he completed 12 of 16.
Speaking of Mac, Roger, he managed to have a little fun at the Pro Bowl. On a blown whistle to stop play, Mac just kept running into the end zone. And how did he finish it? With the gritty. Mac won the celebration dance and probably the internet with this one at the Pro Bowl. Such a goofball. Looks like he's having a great time. You know, a lot of Bama in the Pro Bowl, and they look like they had so much fun on Sunday in Las Vegas.
Indeed they did. You know who else had a lot of fun on Sunday? The Alabama women's basketball team, as the Crimson Tide took on Vanderbilt on the road in Nashville on Sunday and came away with a big road win in overtime.
Vanderbilt led by 1 after the first quarter, but Alabama evened the score at 31 at the half. Both teams scored 17 in the third, and in the fourth, once again, both teams scored the exact same at 16 apiece to finish regulation in a tie at 64.
Now in overtime, Brittany Davis scored the first 5 points, including this 3-pointer on her first shot in overtime. Jemiah Mingo-Young had some big defensive plays and scored 8 points in the overtime period to secure the win for the Crimson Tide, as Alabama wins a big one on the road in thrilling fashion, 77-71 over the Commodores.
Alabama shot over 55% for the game, which is a season high. The win was the 7th consecutive victory for Alabama over Vanderbilt, and Brittany Davis led the Crimson Tide with 25 points, while Jemiah Mingo-Young added 20 herself.
Big win for Christy Curry and the Crimson Tide. Let's take an all-access look at the Tide's thrilling overtime win over the Commodores in Nashville.
Nashville, Tennessee, Alabama women's basketball back on the road, and this afternoon taking on the Vanderbilt Commodores inside Memorial Gymnasium. Pass break for the Crimson Tide. Pushes on the left block to Mingo-Young. Reverse layup. Right side is good. That breaks the scoring drought.
Nice right to left crossover by Brittany Davis as she gets to her left hand and finishes
21-20. Abrams drives to the left side. Layup up. Layup in. Banked it in, and she is fouled up by a point. Davis, left wing, a 3. Bottom. Brittany Davis puts Alabama in front. Right side runner on the way. Underhand toss, and it banks in from Megan Abrams. Mingo-Young with a steal. Right away from Cambridge. Mingo-Young driving right side. Layup up. Layup in. Sutton right corner 3 on the way. Perfect. Line Barber wide open. Left wing 3 on the way. Perfect. Hannah from Homewood ties this game at 62.
Wow. Beautiful fading shot. Jemiah Mingo-Young driving it down the lane line, fading for a nice deuce.
Brittany Davis feeling at home in Nashville. She's got 25 points for Alabama. Now it's into the hands of Megan Abrams. On a fast break, left side layup up and in. The steal, the score. Abrams puts Alabama in front. It took overtime, but the Alabama Crimson Tide continued their winning ways against Vanderbilt. Today's final score from Memorial Gymnasium, Alabama 77, Vanderbilt 71.
And the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Alabama is really playing with max effort.
I can't shoot no big. 6:30 in the morning. Hustle like I ain't getting no portion. While you was dormant, let you sleep since that's so important. Practice my form, I done broke out of the no.
Hannah Barber.
To the bench.
Taylor shot.
It's a done deal. 995. It's in. Alabama, the 2021 SEC champions.
I'm so proud of them. They have worked so hard. They have been fighters.
Welcome back. The 9th-ranked Alabama gymnastics team was back in action at Coleman Coliseum this past Friday night as the Crimson Tide hosted a tri-meet for their Capes and Crowns night.
Yeah, it was a trio of top 25 teams in competition as 17th-ranked Western Michigan and 25th-ranked North Carolina joined number 9 Alabama.
Alabama started the night really strong, posting a season-high 49.5 on the vault, with 4 gymnasts scoring 9.9 or better, led by Shania Adams' career-best 9.950. The momentum carried over to the uneven bars, where Luisa Blanco and Makari Doggett closed out the rotation with back-to-back 9.950s.
Blanco led the Tide to a 49.475 on the balance beam with a 9.95 in the anchor spot. Alabama closed out the meet with a 49.425 floor exercise rotation that featured 3 gymnasts with the same score. Makari Doggett, Lily Hudson, and Lexi Graber all scored 9.9s.
Crimson Tide swept the all-around and every event title, with Blanco taking the title in the all-around with a 39.675. Alabama defeated 17th-ranked Western Michigan and number 25 North Carolina with a season-best score of 197.875. Crimson Tide score matched the highest total of the Dana Duckworth era after the Crimson Tide won last season's Southeastern Conference Championship with another 197.875.
Yeah, with the season best performance, Alabama moved up 1 spot in the rankings. They are now at number 8.
The undefeated Alabama women's tennis team was in action this past Saturday as the Crimson Tide traveled to New Orleans to face 3-0 Tulane. The Green Wave opened the match with a first win in doubles play, but the Crimson Tide battled to take wins on courts 1 and 3 for the doubles point. Alabama won the first singles point to take a 2-0 advantage, but Tulane won the next 2 on courts 1 and 2 to even the score at 2. Alabama then won back-to-back matches on courts 4 and 5 to clinch the team win. Tide remains undefeated at 5-0 with a 4-3 win over Tulane.
The Alabama men's tennis team hosted a doubleheader on Saturday as the Tide welcomed Memphis and UAB to Tuscaloosa. Alabama won the doubles point against the Tigers, and it was very competitive in singles play as 5 of the 6 matches went to a third set. Unfortunately, the Tigers took wins on 4 of those courts to narrowly defeat the Tide 4-3.
In Game 2 of Saturday's doubleheader, Alabama responded with a vengeance as the Tide swept the Blazers, winning the doubles point in all 6 singles matches as Alabama defeated UAB 7-0.
The second-ranked Alabama softball team opens the season this weekend in Arizona for the Candria Classic.
Alabama will take on Southern Utah, Oregon State, New Mexico, plus 9th-ranked Arizona. Let's hear from head coach Patrick Murphy and outfielder Jenna Johnson on this weekend's season opener.
Their director of ops called probably last spring and said, hey, what are you doing opening weekend? And we were kind of undecided. And she said, well, we're going to host the Mike Kendrea Invitational. And as soon as she said that, I was like, we're in. You know, Coach Kendrea was there for 30, 35 years, legend in the sport, 8 national championships, just a really good guy.
We're so excited to go to Arizona. It's going to be a big first weekend. And, you know, we've been scrimmaging each other all spring, so we're ready to play somebody else. And it's going to be fun out there in that Arizona air. We're expecting a lot of hard hits and maybe even a couple balls leaving the yard. So playing that good competition first weekend, it's going to be so important for us in the long run. I'm sure we'll see Arizona again down later in the road. So it's going to be exciting to open up the weekend in Arizona.
We're going to play 4 games. Great stadium. They renovated it a couple years ago, so it's one of the nicer ones in the West Coast. We have a bunch of alums coming from the Tucson area. I've got some relatives coming from Iowa, so we're just looking forward to starting Team 26 and some really good weather against good competition.
I would definitely say the mentality of this team is we hate to lose, and so we're going to get out there and we're going to compete, and our goal is to win a national championship. And even though we have a lot of new people, everybody's bought into the grind, and we're going to buy into trusting the process this year. and we're excited to compete for another national championship, so it's going to be exciting.
They're headed to the Women's College World Series.
And the Alabama Crimson Tide are your SEC champions for the 6th time with a record-breaking run at the Rhodes House. And a perfect present for Montana Fouts and Alabama at the Women's College World Series.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. Now let's take a look at our Players of the Week, brought to you by Legacy of Hope.
A lot of players to talk about this week, and we'll start with women's basketball. Brittany Davis led the Crimson Tide in scoring for the 2nd consecutive game, as she finished with 25 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block in the Crimson Tide's 77-71 overtime win on the road against Vanderbilt.
Jaden Shackelford scored a career-high 30 points on a career-tying 8 three-pointers as he led the Crimson Tide to an impressive 97-83 win over the Ole Miss Rebels in Oxford.
The Alabama swimming and diving team closed out the regular season as several swimmers competed in the Auburn Invitational this past Saturday. Freshman Anna Ogren finished with a time of 59.93 in the women's 100 butterfly, which ranks 6th all-time in Crimson Tide history.
Alabama totaled 23 top 10 finishes, including freshman Ben Hines. Hines won the 50 freestyle with a career best time of 1971, the Tide's 2nd fastest time of the season.
Elliot Kipsang was named the SEC Runner of the Week as he posted a SEC best mark this past weekend as he ran a 3.5670 to win the mile at the Charlie Thomas Invitational. He also took 2nd in the 3,000 meter behind his teammate Hillary Shuriya.
Isaac Adubasan earned SEC Field Athlete of the Week honors as he posted an SEC best mark this past weekend with a school record 20.59 meters in the shot put to win the Charlie Thomas Invitational. In addition to ranking 1st in the SEC, Adubasan's mark ranks 4th nationally this season.
And those were our Players of the Week, brought to you by Legacy of Hope.
A lot of Players of the Week. I think we covered like 12 sports this week.
It's pretty impressive, and make sure you tune in next week as we bring you more on the Crimson Tide, plus the all-access content of Alabama you can't get anywhere else.
See you next week, everybody. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
This has been a presentation from Learfield,